I have been married to Rita for about a year, and it has been great for the most part. I am 31, male, and she is 30, female, and we had been together for 3 years before we got married. We met because of a couple of common friends who thought that it would be a great idea to set us up on a blind date as a joke since we are so different. And eventually it actually turned out pretty great considering the fact that we got married. But anyway, Rita has an older brother, David. David is 35, male, and his wife, Erica, is around the same age. My wife is very close to her brother because while growing up, they pretty much only had each other. Their mother passed away shortly after Rita was born, and it was a devastating incident for the family because she passed away in a road accident, so nobody saw it coming. Rita was just 7 months old at the time, and her mother had been out getting the groceries since her father was at work. It was just the kids and the babysitter who had been at home at the time, and her father pretty much fell into an irreversible depression after their mother passed away. My wife was obviously too young to remember it, but David remembers the way their father used to act in the aftermath of their mother's demise and how he would spend all his days locked up in his room, either working or sleeping. He had started working from home after that, and even though everything was provided to them, they essentially did not have parents, even though their father was still alive. There was no love or affection that was shown to them, and it was just very sad. So, anyway, they realized that pretty early on they would have to be there for each other because their mother was gone and their father was just barely surviving without her. So, they had to look out for each other and have each other's backs. And I think it's very admirable that they have such a great relationship and are so close. But at the same time, it can get really annoying for me because I personally don't come from a family where this is normal. For context, I do not have any siblings, and my parents got divorced when I was 12 years old. I would not say that it affected me in any way. I just realized that I had two rooms now, and that was it. My parents getting divorced was not surprising because even when they were together, they would just keep fighting all the time and barely even speak to each other. I honestly don't even know how they managed to live with each other for 12 years. But anyway, after they got divorced, they were much easier to live with and a lot more pleasant to talk to. So I actually prefer them to be divorced. They continued to co-parent me and remained in touch. But speaking about the different kinds of family that we had, I am not the kind of guy who visits my parents every weekend or speaks with them on the phone every day. I'm very busy with work on my life, and we are lucky if we get to speak for maybe a day or two every month. I don't think my parents mind it either because they have their own lives and are okay with us just getting together once in a while, as opposed to every other day. But it's not the same for my wife, and I tried to respect it earlier, knowing that she has had a very different childhood, and obviously she and her brother are bonded for life. However, it just kept getting more difficult for me to deal with it with time. Earlier, when we were dating, she would speak to him on the phone almost every day, and I thought it was cute. The phone calls would usually last for an hour, and I didn't have an issue with it because, like I'm not close to my family, she is. And that's her life and her choice. As long as it was not affecting me in a negative way, I did not have a problem with it. So I knew that she would be busy at night and I would not call her around that time. But then we moved in together and she would talk to her brother for almost 3 hours every day. And every weekend, he would come to visit us. That kind of started annoying me a little because of a couple of reasons. Both Rita and I had full-time jobs and would be working throughout the day. So when I came back home from work, I expected to be able to spend some time with my girlfriend at the time, but I would have to wait for her to be done talking to her brother, and by the time she was done, I was too tired, and I would just fall asleep as soon as my head would hit the pillow. That was the weekdays, but on the weekends, I thought that maybe we would be able to spend quality time together. However, on those days, her brother, would land at our door and we would spend the entire weekend together. It used to feel like we were not getting any time together, and I didn't feel good about it. I didn't even know how to bring it up with her without sounding petty and insecure, so I stayed silent about it for a couple of months, but then we had our first big fight about something that I don't even remember, and then I decided to bring this up with her. Thankfully, that fight was resolved, and we even spoke about the excessive time that she was spending with her brother. And she told me that she would try to cut down on it and give me more time instead, because evidently that was bothering me and getting in the way of our relationship, and she did not want that. She explained to me that her brother lived a couple of hours away on his own, which he was not used to, but he had to live alone since their father passed away a couple of years before that. He was also feeling very lonely because his girlfriend was working in another state and would only come back for the holidays, so he did not get to see her very often, which is why they were spending so much time together. So he did not feel alone. She had not told me about it because he was not comfortable talking about it, but once I got that explanation, it started to make a little more sense to me. She also understood where I was coming from and told me that she would try to spend more time with me and we would work on our relationship. So then her brother started visiting less frequently and they cut down on the hours of their calls. This had happened 1 year into our relationship, but then once we had the discussion and got it out of the way, everything was fine again. And I proposed to her about a year after that. But things started getting awkward between me and David soon after she started spending less time with him. He would still visit us occasionally, but on those visits, everything would be very tense. I don't blame him for that because obviously I was the one who had asked his sister to spend less time with him. And he did not like that because now he had to spend more time alone. So whenever we would be together, he would take digs at me and try to imply that I was too insecure and jealous to let Rita be in touch with her family. Of course, he would pass it all off as jokes, but I knew that he was actually pretty pissed about what had happened. I thought it was weird that he was taking this so personally because it was really not about him. Even if Rita had been spending that kind of time with anybody else, I would have felt equally sidelined. I don't think it was wrong for me to want to spend time with my girlfriend, and it was not my fault that his girlfriend was working out of state so he could not be with her. But his sister was not a replacement for that, for God's sake. I felt like things had changed between the two of us, and now he saw me as more of a sort of competition because that's the way he started behaving. Even a month before I proposed, he organized a party and invited us all to it, which actually turned out to be his wedding. Erica had quit her job and come back home, and they had decided to surprise us. The key word here is surprise, so I had no idea that they were getting married. They had skipped the engagement and just got married, which made sense because they had been together for a really long time before that. I was happy for them, and we did not interact much at their wedding, even though it was very small and intimate, and he had only invited a couple of his friends, co-workers and family members, so he had enough time to interact with me, but he just chose not to. I did not mind it because it was his wedding, and he could choose to do whatever he wanted to, and it was not like friends anyway, so I did not make an issue out of it. But then a month later, when I got engaged, and I threw an engagement party a couple of days after that, he spent the entire party making jokes about how we were getting serious about the competition now, because I had even gotten engaged just because he was married and I did not want to fall behind. Even as jokes, they were quite distasteful because this was supposed to be a happy occasion for me, and Rita and he were making it all about himself. I don't think anybody found it funny, and everybody who was laughing was doing it so that he would stop talking about it. Even Rita did not like it one bit, and we talked about it later but did not do anything about it because it did not seem worth it to make a big deal out of this, and we decided to focus on planning the wedding instead. We got married about 7 months later, and that's when he announced that he and Erica were going to be parents. He made the announcement about a week after our wedding, and Rita was ecstatic, but I was just worried about how the dynamics would change between us after that because I was pretty certain that he would use this opportunity to start taking pot shots at me. I know it probably sounds like I'm making too much out of it, but trust me, David's behavior around me was nothing short of disrespectful and unnecessarily passive aggressive. And I was actually right because as soon as they got pregnant, he started making jokes about how I would announce that we were pregnant the next thing that they knew, because obviously I could not live with the fact that I was falling behind and I had to win whatever competition I had initiated. He said it all in a very joking way, so I had to laugh along with him every time he would visit and say these stupid things, but on the inside, I would actually be pretty pissed off. Anyway, after they had their twin babies, they got pretty busy with their kids and did not visit us as often as they would. And we did not mind that either because Rita understood that they were parents now, and I did not even want David around in the first place, so I was good. Everything was going normally, but about 2 weeks ago, I came back home from work, and all of a sudden I realized that David and Erica had taken over the house. It was kind of disorienting for me because I didn't remember having any discussion about this with Rita, and I had been caught completely off guard when I came back home. And so David was playing in the living room with his twins, and Rita and Erica cooking together in the kitchen. I also noticed that there were a lot of unpacked bags in the living room, and I asked Rita to speak to me in private so I could understand what this was all about. Once we were in our bedroom alone, I asked her what was going on, and she told me that she had invited them to live with us for a month or so because apparently Erica had to quit her job when she got pregnant and was not actually on maternity leave like she had been telling everyone. When she got pregnant, she had only been working at her new company for a couple of months, and they don't really offer paid leave for new mothers who have not been working there for a year. So she had been told that she could either go on maternity leave without pay, or she would have to come into work. She had decided to quit because it was too stressful for her to even think about it, and David was earning well enough, so it did not seem to be a problem for either of them at the time, but now she spent the entire day at home and she was not used to not contributing to the household expenses because she had been working ever since she turned 18. And that's why she was having a tough time not going to work and just being at home with her children. So she had been acting out, and David thought that maybe this was postpartum depression or something. So he had been very concerned about it and had spoken to her doctor and had come to the conclusion that it would be better for her to be able to spend some time with other people as well, instead of being left alone with the kids all day. So they decided that we would be living together under one roof until she was ready to go back to work or until she felt better. I don't know how I felt about that decision because I hadn't even been included in the discussion, and Rita had just made that decision without even consulting me first, even though both of us lived in the house together. And this was something that should have been a joint discussion instead of just her deciding something and then informing me after she had already said yes to it, especially when she was well aware of the equation between me and David. So we got into a bit of a fight that day because I told her that I was not comfortable with the idea of living with them for more than a week, and she had already agreed that we would all be living together for at least a month. But I had not even been included in that discussion, so I did not understand why she had thought that I would be okay with it, especially given the circumstances with me and David. I was very against it, and she thought that I was being selfish and that I should think about her family and their well-being instead of being petty. Eventually, I had to agree because she had started emotionally manipulating me and said that she did not want to have a guilty conscience in case Erica actually did have postpartum depression. And so she was willing to help them out. It was just a month and it would be over in no time, at least that's what she told me. I was really too tired to fight with her anymore, so I just let it go. Because at the end of the day, I knew that she really valued her family, and this was just something that I had to accept, even if I did not like her family. Her brother, to be more specific. They were all kind of loud and obnoxious to live with, especially David with his constant jibes at me, and I really hated having to wake up in the middle of the night because one of their twins was crying. But it did not even bother Rita because she was not a light sleeper like me, and as a matter of fact, neither was anybody else. It felt really unfair because I was having to make so many sacrifices for kids that were not even mine. I have nothing against the children, but I did not like the fact that the adults in this situation did not seem to care about anybody apart from themselves. And the worst part was that David and his wife were both huge slobs, which was not something that I could accept because I am a bit of a neat freak and I really don't like it when people don't even want to do the bare minimum. They would keep their dishes lying here and there around the house, and they would never clean up after themselves, and they could not even be bothered to do their share of chores around the house. So everything was a huge mess, and I hated living that way. I even tried to politely tell them that they had to clean up after themselves, and everybody just made fun of me because they thought that I was being ridiculous and would ask me to lighten up, which was even more infuriating than what they were doing. I finally lost my temper at them a couple of days ago. Since then, Rita has been refusing to speak to me because she thinks that I was very rude and I should not have behaved that way with her family. David and Erica know that we are fighting and they are obviously on her side. But while they are not ignoring me, they are definitely all giving me the cold shoulder, and I don't even know what I did wrong. About 3 days ago, I came back home from work and everything was a huge mess. I could not even walk in without stepping on something because there were toys and clothes literally all over the floor. There were random food stains on the walls and the couch, and Erica was napping on the couch with her children, even though they had the guest room to themselves. And David was sitting on the couch with a glass of wine, watching the football game that was on that day, and he did not even seem put off by the fact that the entire room smelled really bad. He usually gets home earlier than me because he has been cutting down on his hours ever since the kids were born. And I don't know what happened that day, but I just snapped and I started screaming at everybody. I woke Erica up and I told her and David that I would watch the kids, but they had to clean the house up immediately because this was my house and it was my name on the deed. So they were welcome to do whatever they wanted when it was their own home that they were living in, but here they were house guests, and they had to do what I asked of them. I had tried telling them to keep the house clean plenty of times, and I'd been very polite about it earlier, but evidently that did not have the desired effect. So now I was demanding that they do what I told them to and clean up the house. They did not even argue with me because I was that pissed off and I was yelling my head off at them. When the twins started crying because of all the yelling, I took them into the guest room and I told them to get to work while I watched the kids. I was literally fuming. And I only came back out 2 hours later when the house was spotless. I did not think it was necessary to thank David and Erica because I had been asking them to do this for ages. And they had only done it because I had started yelling at them. So after I made sure that the house was clean, I went into my room and stayed there until Rita came back home. She had been working overtime that day and I had known about it, so she came back home pretty late, around 10 in the night. As soon as she came back home, she came to our room and started fighting with me over what had happened earlier. She told me that what I had said to David and Erica and the way that I had behaved that day was absolutely unacceptable, and she wanted me to apologize to them because she thought that I had been rude to them on purpose. She believed that I had never liked David, and I was just trying to put him down and make him feel bad about himself along with his wife, which is just such rubbish. I had no intention of doing any of that, and I literally only just wanted the house to be clean. That's it. I even tried to explain that to her, but she was not ready to listen to me and told me that I had to apologize because the way that I behaved that day was not okay. And she did not appreciate the fact that I thought that I can speak like this to her family. She even went to the extent of saying that I would not like it if she acted like that with my family, but I think that's completely different. Because, first of all, I would never invite my parents to live with us without making sure that she was okay with it first. And more importantly, even if my parents were living with us, I am sure that they would not make a mess of the house like her brother and his family had. If speaking to them rudely was insulting to them, living in my house and disregarding my opinions about cleanliness and hygiene was also disrespectful to me. Now it has been a couple of days and my wife is not talking to me and everybody else is giving me the cold shoulder. My wife and I sleep in the same room with our backs to each other, and that's how bad it is right now. I feel very bad about this, and it honestly feels like they are targeting me on purpose. It will sound kind of immature, but that's a little how it feels, like everybody is on one side and I'm being pushed to the other side because they just want to make me feel like a bad guy for wanting something as basic as the house to be clean. Nobody is on my side on this, and literally the only people who are treating me like they usually do are the kids, which is just so sad. I want to fix things with my wife, but I don't want to apologize because I don't think I did anything wrong. So AITA for yelling at my mother-in-law and his wife because they had been living with us and had made a mess out of my house. Update 1. So I went through the comments that you guys had left for me on the original post, and most people agreed that I don't have any reason to apologize right now, and I agree. It has been a week since our fight, and she has still not spoken to me. This is probably the longest that we have gone without talking to each other, and if this goes on for any longer, then I think I might move out and file for divorce because I don't see any other way out of this. She is not going to apologize and acknowledge that she messed up, and that I don't have to do any of that because I did not do anything wrong. So we are in a deadlock, and I don't know what to do about it. It is really sad because I love her. I really do. And I want to make this work, but not at the cost of my dignity. So either we talk this out or I leave and this marriage comes to an end. It's going to be really sad if that happens, but I honestly don't know what else to do. Update 2. Okay, so yesterday I was talking about divorce, and today I don't think that's going to be necessary. Thank God for that. So when I came back home from work today, I realized that the house was empty and Rita finally spoke to me. She had come back home before I had, and she finally told me that she was sorry about the way that she had been behaving. She said that she had become so protective of her family that she forgot that even I was her family now, and she couldn't believe how stupid she had been. She told me that she had regretted fighting with me the very next day and had been trying to distance herself from David so she could think about things from my perspective, and she had realized how wrong she had been. She had even tried to talk to David and Erica to get them to apologize to me, but instead they started trying to turn her against me and talk badly about me. The last straw was when David suggested that she leave me. She had been trying to talk them into apologizing to me for the last couple of days, and this morning she had tried to talk to them yet again and had asked them to apologize to me, but that's when David brought up the fact that I have not been talking to her since we had that fight, and he told her that I was disrespectful towards her and her family and she should stand up for herself and leave me. So she tried to explain to him that even they were being pretty disrespectful by not bothering to listen to me when I told them that I wanted my house to be clean. And so he started throwing a fit and said that she was being unfair to them since they were new parents and did not have the time and energy to constantly look after the house. And when she tried to defend me and said that she was doing most of the household work and Erica did not have to do anything, and even David came back home from work early, the least they could do was keep the house clean. So they ended up fighting, and she realized just how toxic and entitled they were. So she told them to leave, and they left. but they told her that they were disappointed that she had decided to be just like me. She had realized that they were not the right people and definitely did not want the best for her, because if they had, they would have realized that she was happy with me and did not want to leave me. I was overjoyed that they were gone, and Rita and I were finally back. But obviously, we had a lot to work on and sort out, so we have decided that we are going to go and see a marriage counselor this weekend and try to be normal again. I love her, and I really would have hated to live without her, so this is ideal. Everybody makes mistakes, and I am just glad that she realized that she had made some bad choices by alienating me, but at least now she acknowledged it and apologized for it, so we can work on everything and fix it. Update 3. Hey, so this is just after our first counseling session, and it went pretty well. We had a lot of issues, and I think that was pretty obvious from my post. But we have decided that from now on, any time that we have a conflict, we are going to talk about it and make sure that we end it then and there instead of just letting it build up and then blow it out of proportion. It was difficult to talk about things in front of a stranger, but we got used to it after a while. And once we got into the flow of it, it was actually pretty relieving, and I feel like I got something really big off my chest. I can actually tell that she feels the same way, and I'm really looking forward to where this leads us. We have had problems in the past, but I am looking forward to sorting them out. She also thinks that she should get therapy for herself because the things that have happened with her brother have really shaken her up. They don't talk anymore because he stopped responding to her after the fight. I can't believe that somebody can be so ungrateful. But that's how David is, I guess. I never liked him much, but now I think I like him even less, which I didn't even think was possible. But it's fine. I know that we can get through anything as long as we're together, and she will move on from this. I will make sure of it. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.